Welcome to Gamers Among Us. If you haven't heard of us yet, we're a group of like-minded individuals who enjoy games. We love playing them. We love watching fellow friends play them, and we want everyone to enjoy games just as much as us, and that's why we made this group. And that includes myself, the Steel Grizzly, Trick Enigma, and Calamity Code. And today we're going to be looking at our post-look on Division 2. It's been out for a while now, and we wanted to kind of do a look back on the game. We're going to look at three main things is normally what we like to look at, and that's the reviews on the game. You know, essentially, was it well reviewed, and how has it been doing since it came out? You know, is it worth playing? And then our last one is essentially along those same lines of, is it not only worth playing, but is it worth buying at full sale price or a discounted price, or maybe wait for a sale? So we're going to kind of follow those guidelines to give you a little bit. It's not a review. It's more of just what our perspective of the game is and how we've perceived it. And personally, the game, I like the mechanics. It's more of a loot and shoot kind of game. So if you want to go around and loot things and then shoot a bunch of random AIs with really cool nifty gadgets, then this is definitely a game to like kind of get into. But if you're not really into, I would say, doing that kind of gameplay, maybe not look into it. Or, maybe this is an opportunity for you to actually get into this kind of game. But I'll go ahead and let you guys bring up some topics too.
Well, we'll go ahead and start with the review scores. I know IGN gave it an 8.5, which is pretty good ranking for them. I think they liked a lot of the beginning of the game. They didn't start counting off towards like end game content, and loot tiering systems is really kind of where it seems to have fallen short. But all in all, an 8.5 is a pretty good review from them.
Yeah, so the Metacritic score is 82, but the user score is 7.2, but still generally positive in both regards. So
yeah, that's definitely true. It's overall it's kind of like one of the last games we looked at where it came out. It wasn't as good as everyone hoped it to be, but it still met satisfactory goals. And along those lines, with the reviews, there's been a lot of issues, at least with the first game. We all know that it kind of came out and there was a lot of bugs and there were a lot of issues, and then there were a lot of repetitive gameplay, and there was a lot of situations where other people would take advantage of the loot system and come in and get, fresh people. And it seems that they fixed it.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties into the second portion, which is expectations. Did the game live up to the hype? What we were expecting to come from it? What are some of the major flaws? I do know in the beginning there was an issue with some of the weapons and some of the commands. Like, I think there was a hover drone that you could send out to attack enemies and it wasn't actually going anywhere. And I will give them credit. The devs were really quick to jump on that and get that fixed. Like, they had not acknowledged it was an issue right away, and I think within like a day or two even, it was fixed. So as far as like the flaws in the game, what few there seem to be are addressed pretty quick. And even if they're not fixed right away, they at least let the consumer, the gamer, know that they're working on it, which in this day and age is really, honestly, it's a great thing to see because it seems to be so rare nowadays.
Yeah, we've talked about it a couple times, but a lot of the major developers seem to kind of have their agenda and they don't really care about anything beyond that. Like with Black Ops, they're actually still having issues with their loot system, and they're still pushing new microtransactions and making things crazy. But Ubisoft, I feel like, has always been pretty good about that, and this is a good example of it. They really do seem to be actively balancing it and keeping up with feedback and making sure that it's a lot more solid than the first one was.
Yeah, like before we started this, I was reading another article where I guess they were in the next like launch for the game, they were going to change the high loot tier system, and apparently a lot of players weren't too thrilled with that, so they took that feedback and had meetings and talked it out, and they're actually retracting that and working to make a compromise that works for everybody. And I think that's pretty awesome. Like, that's how you keep games going, especially games like these where it's a continuous play and you go back and, grind even once you've completed the campaign and everything else. Having that kind of rapport with your audience right away really sets a good tone for it later on down the road.
Right. And so speaking to the expectation thing, I feel like it is kind of living up to the hype, just because what they've provided so far has been basically the Division 1, but improved in every way possible. Like you said, it does still have some issues here and there, but they're pretty quick to fix them. So I think people are generally happy with it, and it's what they expected from it. And it's miles beyond what the first one was.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It does seem to be a pretty great game so far.
Yeah, I like that. What we just talked about is that they took things that were bad in the previous game and they tried to fix it and make it better. And for a publisher to be like, "Hey, there's an issue here. Let's fix it." It's kind of sad that that's unheard of nowadays. But it's
True.
really awesome
Yeah.
that they did take up that initiative to like jump in and do that. Which like we're talking about the expectations, the reviews, they came out pretty high. 8 out of 10 is a really good kind of average. And if you're like kind of looking for this game and you want to you've still been kind of holding off for it, I would definitely, like Trick just said, they just yesterday had loot issues and they were going to make some changes, and they listened to the fans that said, no, I don't want this. And that's kind of what we want in game companies, people that want to look for our interest, because to be honest, we're the people playing the games. So we want them to support us instead of just throwing a game at us and saying, just deal with our bugs, deal with the issues, like treating us like peons.
Right. And people do kind of have to understand that it's hard for a company to keep supporting a game like that after it's been released. It's usually expensive and doesn't really make them any more money to keep going back and changing things in a game like this. But that being said, with games being online now and them being able to push an update right away, it's good to see a company doing that right, because like you said, not a lot do, and it doesn't really make sense, and it's kind of upsetting that we have that expectation that they're not going to keep fixing things and balancing it after it's released. But we do have people like Ubisoft that are doing it right here and there. So
oh yeah, I definitely think like I was just saying, at 8 out of 10 with the reviews, it's got, if you were expecting a good game and it's come out, and it's had some issues, it had some bug issues, but Ubisoft is on top of it and they're trying to fix things. There are issues with the loot system, just kind of in-game content where it's more, I guess, profitable to do the campaign in the game than it is to do loot in, say, the Dark Zones, because all the loot in the Dark Zones is kind of mediocre from what we've seen by playing and, just kind of getting into the game. And it's, overall, I would definitely say, either buy it full price, or actually I think it's kind of discounted right now. So right now might be a good time to get it. Didn't you mention that, Calamity, before the stream, that it's actually kind of a little bit cheaper?
yeah, so depending on your platform, it's about $10 to $20 under the initial price. So $30 to $50 depending on where you buy it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate and on point with it. That kind of leads into our third little section: is it worth it? Should you buy it now? Or should you wait? Should you buy it at all? And I'll go ahead and let Grizz start on this one.
Yeah, so overall this game is definitely worth it. They put a lot of time and money in it, and if you're just trying to get into the looter shooter kind of game style and you don't want to spend too much money, I would definitely look into this. There are some microtransactions within the game for, I think, cosmetics and whatnot. It's definitely worth looking into if you enjoy kind of like running around shooting things. Plus, the game itself is beautiful. So, they meticulously did Washington, D.C., and it's all set up to supposedly, like, or not supposedly, there, like, there's areas and you can go to in Washington D.C. and then find it in the game, you know, and it's really awesome to be able to do that.
Yeah, one review I was reading actually, they went into great detail about how amazing the art design was and how in depth it is. Like, you can go to some of the museums. I think one of the campaigns is you're actually stealing the Declaration of Independence and securing it. And, like, basically, if you've ever wanted to check out Washington, D.C., this is your best opportunity to do it on a low budget. Like, it's pretty close to life, and that's kind of amazing, you know, if you think about it.
Yeah. So overall, I agree. At the price that it's at now, it's probably worth it. It's definitely one of the better looter shooters out there. It's about a 20 to 25 hour main campaign, but then of course there's the PvP stuff you can do. You can keep grinding for more loot and everything. The gun customization is really cool. There's all kinds of different weapons, and you can customize them individually, and you can try them out in a target range and see how much DPS you're getting from each one. So that part of it is really well done, which I feel like a lot of those games are kind of lacking in, but this one does it right. So I would definitely say it's worth it. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot to it. Lots of different enemy types, and the boss battles are a little bit lame, but everything else is pretty solid. So
Yeah, I mean, this game is a really good game. So, like we said this whole time, if you want to check it out, it's definitely worth checking out. If you want to wait, that's up to your prerogative. You know, it's definitely a good game. So we at Gamers Among Us, we recommend checking it out. And if you would like more looks into, like, post looks into games like this, or maybe want to look into gaming spotlights of new games that are about to come out, or, you know, like a watch list just to give you a heads up to some, like, new indie games, because I know there are a ton of games out there that come out, you can make sure to like this video, and not only do that, but make sure to subscribe so that way you can keep updated, because we're putting stuff out every week. We have Wednesday and Saturday right now on the schedule. We put out a watch list on Wednesday, which looks into a couple little games that might be coming out, and then Saturday we either do what you're listening to now, which is our past look onto a game that's already been out, or we'll do a spotlight on a new game coming out. And we have some future stuff planned, but I won't get into that because I want you guys to be surprised. But if you want to find us outside of YouTube or any other platform you're watching this on, make sure to follow us on Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and Facebook. All that information is going to be below in our info. And we also have a Patreon set up, so if you want to help support us outside of any of those other platforms, make sure to go check that out. We have different tiers, and we do a podcast as well, so you guys can check that out on Anchor. But I mention that because on Patreon you can actually subscribe to a certain tier and actually get to join in on us. You actually get to join in on the podcast with us. And we look forward to future Patreon supporters being in on the podcast. And that's about all we have for this. So I just want to thank everyone for watching. And this is Gamers Among Us, signing off.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.